I am now going to go over one of the most difficult concepts my students have in mastering, and that is dividing decimals. And these are only going to be dividing decimals by whole numbers, but what happens when they don't work out evenly, which can be a big time problem, and we're going to talk about how to round your quotients. Now, say I'm doing 3 and 73/100ths divided by 4. The easy part is when there is a whole number as your divisor, all you do is you pop your decimal directly up. And for now, we follow the rules exactly the way we know how to do them. 4 can't go into 3, but 4 can go into 37. So 4 times 9 is 36. 37 minus 36 is 1. We're going to bring down the 3. And now we're dividing 4 into 13. 4 times 3 is 12. 13 minus 12 is 1. But we have a problem now. What do we do when we have a remainder and we want to try to get rid of the remainder? Well, what we can do when we're dividing by decimals is we can add an extra place holding 0 to see if that gets rid of the decimal. So I'm going to add an extra place holding 0 because 3 and 73/100ths is the same as 3 and 730,000ths. This is just a placeholder 0, so we can do this. So I'm going to bring down this 0, and now I'm going to divide 4 into 10. 4 goes into 10 twice. 4 times 2 is 8. And unfortunately, we did not get rid of our remainder yet. 10 minus 8 is 2. We have two choices. We could keep dividing and keep adding placeholding zeros, which if we added another placeholding 0, 4 would go into 20 5 times, so we would get rid of it. But then there's another option, and that's what I always have my kids do. Since most of the decimals you deal with in your life are money, I tell them to always just round your quotient to the hundredths place. That means you never have to divide farther than the thousandths place. Because after all, what do you really care about when you're dealing with decimals? Money. So we're going to underline the hundredths here. We've divided to 3 decimal places, so now we can round. So what does that 2 tell the 3 to do? Well, it tells it to stay the same. So we can round this quotient to 93/100ths. Let's try another example. I'll call this a medium difficulty example. We first pop up our decimal. We put our caret above the 1 because 7 doesn't go into 2, it goes into 21. Well, 7 goes into 21 3 times. 7 times 3 is 21. We subtract, we have 0. Now we're going to bring down this 3. But as I said in an earlier video, if you bring something down in division, you must divide into it. So 7 must be divided into 3. 7 goes into 3 less than 1 time, so we're going to represent that with a 0. 7 times 0 is 0. 3 minus 0 is 3. So, just like we did before, we're going to add a place holding 0 because 21.3 is the same as 21.30. We're going to bring down that 0. 7 times 4 is 28. 30 minus 28 is 2. And now we've divided to the hundredths place. If we go one more place, add one more 0, we've divided to the thousandths place. Now we can round to the hundredths. 7 times 2 is 14. And we did not get rid of our remainder, but that's okay. 20 minus 14 is 6. We can just round this to the hundredths. So 3.042, the 2 tells the 4 to stay the same. That's just going to round to 3.04, and I think that would be good enough. Now here's what I would call a hard problem. 40 divided by 51. Now, some kids get confused when they see a problem written like this, but in division you don't always divide, especially when you're dividing decimals, you don't always divide the smaller number into the bigger number. You set up your division the way it's written. 40 divided by 51 means you must write 40 in the division house divided by 51. But you might say, well, I can't divide 51 into 40. Sure you can. You can divide any number into any number, because we can just turn our 40 into a decimal by turning it into a 40.0. That equals 40, doesn't it? So let's now follow the same rules. Pop up our decimal. 51 can't go into 4, can't go into 40, but it can go into 400 because this decimal is actually gone now. Once we popped it up, it's here. up in your quotient. So we're dividing 51 into 400. Now, using your estimation skills, you could think of 5 into 40 is 8. And I'm going to tell you right now that's going to be a little bit too big since we're actually dividing 51. So we're going to try 7. 51 times 7. We have 7 times 1 is 7. 7 times 5 is 35. So we have a 7. We have 357. Now we're going to subtract. Can't subtract, can't borrow. I need to go to the 4, make it a 3, make this 0 a 10. Now I can borrow from its neighbor. I'm going to make the 10 into a 9 and make this 0 a 10. By the way, one of the most common mistakes in division I find is subtraction errors. 10 minus 7 is 3. 9 minus 5 is 4. 3 minus 3 is nothing. Now, we have a remainder, and we only have a quotient in the tenths place. So we're going to have to add another place holding 0. Now, 51 times 7 was already multiplied, but that looks way too small. So let's try the 51 times 8 now. 8 times 1 is 8. 8 times 5 is 40. That's pretty close, so I'm going to write an 8. We get 408. Borrow from the 3, make it a 2. Make that a 10. 10 minus 8 is 2. 2 minus 0 is 2. And we still have a remainder. We've only gone to the tenths, to the hundredths place, so we need to add one more place holding 0. By the way, if you hear that noise, my class is coming up from their special. I'm trying to finish this video. They're being very good waiting in the hall for me. So I'm going to add one more place holding 0 to take this to the thousandths place so we can round it to the hundredths. So now we're going to try to divide 51 into 220. Well, 5 goes into 22 4 times, so we're going to try 4. 51 times 4 is 4. 5 times 4 is 20, so we have 204. So I'm going to put the 4 right here. I have 204. 2, we're going to borrow from the 2, make it a 1, make the 0 a 10. 10 minus 4 is 6, and I have a 1. So we know that's a remainder, but that's okay. We have accurately divided to the thousandths place. Now we can round to the hundredths. We got lucky, and none of them we had to round up, but the quotient that would be acceptable for this one is I would round this to 0.78 since the 4 tells the 8 to stay the same. And that is dividing decimals by whole numbers.